Life is calling us and requiring for us to choose ourselves. The days of putting people ahead of us, the days of putting people above us, the days of not considering yourself is long gone. Life is requiring for us to choose ourselves. Hey everybody, my name is Zabable and welcome back to another episode. So before I get started, I want to say if you are new to this channel or you've watched a couple of my videos before, I'd really appreciate if you would like, comment and subscribe. So back onto the topic, and today it is on the art of finally choosing yourself. And why this topic is so important is because I've just recently been on holiday with my dad. We went to Portugal, and a little bit of a background story. We've been having a family friend that's been causing havoc to the family. They've just been causing craziness and just been such a, I guess they've been difficult. And me and my dad were actually on our way to an activity. I think that was on our way to the beach, and he literally pulled up to call this family friend, and he told this family friend that he is no longer welcome to come to our house. And it literally choked me up because I felt as if when we were younger that my dad didn't necessarily choose us. I felt as if he saw danger or difficult people. I didn't feel as if he protected us and shielded us from certain things and situations, because he was always choosing the other party. He was always choosing his friends or businesses or opportunities and plans. And so when he called up this family member and told them that they were no longer welcome in the house, I just felt like it gave me a sense of healing. It healed something inside of me. And I literally looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, I can't believe it. You've changed so much. I know that you love us and I know that you care for us, but in this moment, I felt as if you chose us." And I just felt as if this is just so important, because a lot of us are in a space and time where we need to choose ourselves. Life is calling us and requiring for us to choose ourselves. The days of putting people ahead of us, the days of putting people above us, the days of not considering yourself is long gone. Life is requiring for us to choose ourselves. And just like I had that obviously moment with my dad, I realized that so many of us do not know how to choose ourselves because we were raised in a household that didn't give us the tools and the blueprint and the guide of what choosing ourselves actually looks like. We grew up with parents who didn't even consider themselves. They didn't even choose themselves. They chose what was convenient in the moment. They chose what they believed would protect us or give us comfort or give us opportunities. And so they didn't even consider us as children or our sensitivities. They just didn't consider what could harm us or what could give us trouble, because they had to make decisions, and most of the time it wasn't for the benefit of us. They thought it was for the benefit of their children, they thought it was for the benefit of their families, but actually it wasn't. It actually caused more chaos and damage to the family unit. And a lot of us have grown up with mothers who, they look after everybody. They look after their children, they look after their siblings, they look after their parents, our grandparents, they look after their friends, but they don't actually put themselves first. And we haven't been given the blueprint of what actually choosing ourselves looks like. And so it's really easy for us to go through life putting everybody above us, being that loyal friend, being that considerate friend, being that good person, being that obedient person, and actually look back on life and realize that you never actually put yourself first. You never actually considered yourself. You did what was good, you did what was noble, you did what was honorable, but you did not choose and put yourself first. I'm going to give a couple of tips on how to actually choose yourself, how to actually put yourself first. And it was inspired by my conversation with my dad in that moment on what I gleaned from that moment that would really help you and really helped me to actually put some things in place, to actually finally choose myself so I can have the life that God wants me to have, that I can have the life that I'm supposed to have, and that for you to have the life that you're supposed to have. So number one, consider your state. And when I mean consider your state, is that what state of life are you currently in? Are you in a vulnerable state? Are you in a sensitive state? Are you in are you in a state where you are building, where you are recovering, where you are pulling things down? And the reason why it's so important for you to know what state you are in, because you don't know what lines of defense to actually put up to protect you from. So I'm going to give you a scenario. So if I had two children, one child is vulnerable and quite sensitive and they take a lot of things to heart, and then I had another child who was very confident and very free-spirited, they have to have different lines of defense. And the child that needs, and so they need to have different lines of defense. So the child which is sensitive would need a different line of defense for the child who is confident. For the child who's sensitive, I know that I need to shield them away from people who are quite mean-spirited, who's harsh, who are not careful with those words, because I know that my child is somebody who can take things quite personally, that they internalize situations, they internalize words, they make it about themselves because they don't know how to interpret things correctly. And so I need to keep them shielded away from people who just blatantly say things with actually a care or consideration. But with the child who is confident and free-spirited, I know that I need to protect them from people who are going to dampen their confidence, who's going to tell them to be quiet, who's going to tell them to maybe convince them to shrink or convince them to be different, because, convince them that they need to be like the other kids, maybe more quiet, or maybe be more, less loud or less assertive. I know what lines of defense to put up so I can make sure that they grow to the best and the fullest that they need to become. And that's us as well. We will do that for our children, we'll do that for our nieces, we'll do that for our grandkids, we'll do that for our godchildren. But a lot of us are actually putting ourselves in the front line of fire, knowing that it's going to destruct us, knowing that it's going to tear us down. We're labeling, putting ourselves at a crossfire and calling it loyal. We're calling it obedient. We're calling it being kind. We're calling it being a good person. Yet we know that if we put ourselves in certain situations, that it will strip us of the things in which we should be building. It will strip us from the treasures that we have within. It will strip us from our confidence, our self-worth, our strength. But yet we still put ourselves in that situation because we haven't actually considered, where am I right now? Am I in a sensitive space? Do I need healing right now? Am I somebody that is quite hopeless, but I'm trying to build hope? Because then if you are somebody who is in that space where you're trying to build hope, you need to protect yourself from people who are so prone to projection, prone to projecting negativity, prone to project their lack of belief. If you're somebody who is currently healing from a heartbreak, you have to protect yourself from going on dates. You have to protect yourself from men who are vicious, men who are inconsiderate. If you are somebody who is trying to rebuild yourself financially, you need to protect yourself from friends who will encourage you to go out and spend recklessly or spend on trying to prove yourself or things that are not really needed for your season. You know what to do because you know what state you are in. And so the question is that what state are you in? Because then you don't know what to do if you don't know where you are at. And the Bible talks about do not throw your pearls among swine. And that is an analogy that shows that what is the treasure that you have within yourself? Have you considered what's within you? Have you considered what's valuable that needs protection? What is valuable? What is precious that needs guidance, that needs covering? Because when you don't know what you possess, when you don't know what's valuable, you're going to just be throwing yourself on anything. You're going to be putting yourself in situations that you shouldn't be putting yourself in. You're going to be hanging around with people that don't value or deserve you because you don't know the value that you have within yourself. If you are currently emotionally vulnerable. You're going to put yourself in situations where you can constantly be triggered around people who are just going to talk to you anyhow, or treat you anyhow, or disregard you because you don't know the treasure that you have within yourself. You're going to throw all your pearls out because you haven't considered what you actually carry, what gold you actually carry within yourself. So the question is, what state are you currently in? Second of all, it's all about nutrition. A lot of us don't feed ourselves like we love ourselves. Now, like I said, we've got nieces, we've got godchildren, we've got cousins, we've got younger siblings, and when we give them food, when it comes to dinner time, lunchtime, whatever it is, we make sure that we give them a healthy portion of carbs. We've got the meat, but we make sure that they have their vegetables on their plate. And when on the dinner table, from the corner of our eye, if we notice that they have not touched those vegetables, we tell them to sit back down. You ain't coming off that dinner table until you eat your greens. We make sure that they have enough water. We tell them that, hey, you better finish that glass of water before you leave the dinner table. And we say that to them because we understand the importance of nutrition. We understand that you can't just be eating anything. For parents with younger children, they will tell you that sometimes I will hear some of my friends and they will say, you know what, like so-and-so is only allowed to have one biscuit a day. They're not allowed to have sugar before bed. They're not allowed to eat sugar stuff or sweet stuff before the weekend. They understand that putting certain things in their body is going to actually cause havoc or imbalance within their hormones. It's going to make them hyperactive. It's going to make them tired. It's not going to make them concentrate properly. But we don't say that to ourselves. We forget that we are still small children. Because we are grown men, we're grown women, we say to ourselves that ain't nobody can tell us what to do or what to eat because we know what's important. We know what's good for us. And so we can just do whatever. We can eat whatever. But actually, if you understood that certain foods don't even agree with you anymore, certain foods that you're not even tolerable to anymore. I've got friends who are lactose intolerant, and even though they know that if they have any dairy, it's the end of them, but they will still run. You know, an ice cream van hates to see them coming because they're gonna run up to the ice cream van and they're gonna ask them for, can I have a scoop and a cone and some strawberry syrup on top? They're gonna go and have cheese. Honestly, they're gonna go to the cheese board and they're gonna eat enough. They're gonna eat loads of cheese, but they forget to consider the fact that they can't eat dairy. They're not supposed to eat dairy, but they don't care because they just want it. How many of us are actually just eat, makes us feel good for like 5 minutes, 30 minutes, but we know we're gonna crash afterwards. We know we're going to come up with hives after eating it. We know that it's going to disrupt our digestion. We know we're going to have flare-ups if we eat it, just because it's nice. When I found out that I had an intolerance to pasta, and I love pasta, and coming from an African girl, an African woman, I like pasta more than I like rice. But once I found out that pasta makes me lethargic, it just makes me so tired, like I started to realize that I can't be doing this, especially when I was in the office. I'll eat pasta, and you know this office, like your workplace, they love to put a meeting after lunch. They know that everybody goes to lunch from 1 to 2, but they put a meeting at 2:15. And I'm just sitting there, falling asleep, paying no attention because I am tired. And it wasn't because they were boring. Even though, yeah, they weren't that exciting, but I was falling asleep and I was dozing off because I knew that I had eaten pasta. It had to get to the point where I had to tell myself that I'm going to have to stop eating pasta. Or I'm going to have to eat pasta that's made from a different ingredient. I can't have wheat or drumming wheat. I had to choose something else. And so for a lot of us, do we actually feed ourselves in alignment to how much we love ourselves? Because if we did, we will care for what we put on our plates as much as we care for what we put on our children's plates or our young one plates. Because we know that just the way that nutrition is important for them, nutrition is actually important for us. When you realize that sugar is a cause of so many diseases and illnesses, you won't be bagging it out so much. When you realize that drinking alcohol causes so much inflammation and actually is a real big cause for autoimmune disease, you're not going to be asking for porn star martini every Friday. When you realize that banging out a packet of Haribos is going to cause you diabetes, you're not going to be too quick to buy yourself a packet. Choosing yourself is honoring what is good for you. Even though you like it, you know that the end goal is not going to bring anything to you. Third of all, who are you hanging around with? Who are you hanging around with? When my mum was younger, she used to go and say, there was a couple of friends in which I had, and she'll be like, I don't like that one. And I'd be like, Mum, she's a good person. I love her. Oh my God, she's a great friend. She'd be like, I don't like that one. Is a troublemaker. That one will not take you far. And I used to be like, my mum is so judgmental. I don't know why she's always picking on this friend and that friend. I don't know why she's not allowing me to hang around with that person or this person. But I had to realize that she wasn't wrong. There are some people that even in my life or the course of my life, I had to look at them and think, ooh, I don't think I can hang around with you, I love you, you're fun, you're adventurous, you're even generous, you're loyal, but you're not good for me because you're not taking me anywhere. The Bible talks about that bad company corrupts good character. Bad company, we think of bad people. We think of people that are doing the extreme, the people that are into drugs, the people that like are really promiscuous, the people who are really, they're drunkards, the people who are really, doing money laundering. We think of the extreme, but we don't think about the small little things that people do that actually are like weeds. A little leaven leavens the whole load. What are some of the things that the people in your life are doing that are small but actually are causing big effects in your life? There were people in my life that I realized that I had to stop hanging around with them because they were really negative. It didn't matter what positive things that were happening in their lives. It doesn't matter what positive things were happening in my life. They always had something negative to say. They were always upset about something. Whenever I'm one of those people that tend to, if I'm going through a situation, I don't complain about it too much. I find complaining quite exhausting. And if I complain, I actually don't have much energy to actually problem solve. But I have people that, just as friends, if you're going through a situation, I will tell them that, hey, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, I'm feeling a little bit, I'm not feeling so great, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling depressed or whatever it is. But they wouldn't come with positivity. They wouldn't come with encouragement or motivation. They wouldn't come with wisdom. They will come and join in the party with me. They will start to hold my hands and we'll sit around the campfire and start singing Kumbaya. We'll be crying together. And I realized that I couldn't hang around with people like that. I had to stop hanging around with people who are still living in the past. Were living in the past in their own life, but also saw me as a past version of myself. I realized that there was only a limit to how far I could go because they kept me bound to a version that I no longer represented. A version that was no longer existing. They're always just going to tell me that, Sabable, like, you used to be this and you used to be that, but I had to remind them that I'm not longer that person anymore. I don't like those things. I don't like going to those places. I don't speak that. But they just couldn't let go of the fact that I had changed. And they couldn't let go of the fact that they had to change, that their mentality had to change, that their emotional availability or regulation or development had to evolve. They forgot that they had to become a different version of themselves, that they wanted to produce a different version of them. And so I had to really consider, who was I hanging around with? And it's the same question for you. If you're not careful about who you hang around with, your future is on the line. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the most talented person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the most ambitious person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the most positive person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need to be around people who are better than you. And I know that's scary because I was one of those people that I used to be threatened by people who were more confident than me. If I knew that someone was more successful than me, I was just like, okay, they're just coming to expose my lack. They're coming to expose that I need a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more wisdom. Maybe they're coming to expose that I'm not actually as confident as I thought I was. But actually they came to do me a favor because they came to show me what can be. And so you have to be mindful of who you hang around with, because there's a saying that says that you are the accumulation of your 5 friends. And if you can look at your hands and you see like those 5 friends ain't really doing much, and I don't mean doing much in a bad way, because there are some people that are amazing, they're so loyal, they're so good, but they're not going in the direction in which you want to go to, you have to ask yourself, do I need to be here? Because if I stay here, I might be here for a really long time. And so you have to, choosing yourself is choosing to stay away from certain companies, from certain people, from certain environments, and consider the company that you keep. Choosing you is knowing that you can do better, not because you're better than anybody, but because you know that you have a purpose and a plan and a destination to actually journey to and get to. Point number 4, you need to get those boundaries, baby. You need to get those boundaries. By choosing you is by choosing boundaries. You need to teach people how to treat you. If you're somebody who was always taught that you should be available to everybody, that you should be accessible to everybody, life calls you to put up those boundaries. You need to find out what doesn't work for you anymore. You need to tell people how you need to be treated, how you want to be spoken to, what activities you like, what are your passions. You need to tell people who you are today and not who you were yesterday. Your time is valuable. Your life is valuable. Your future is valuable. And boundaries protects your space. Boundaries protects what is yours from what's other people. Boundaries is the separation from somebody else's property to another. It separates what's yours to somebody else's. So just like a boundary line to a garden, you know that within those gates around your garden, that is yours. Once you cross those gates, you're into somebody else's garden. So what belongs to you and what belongs to your neighbor. And so a lot of us hasn't been taught what boundaries actually look like. If you're from an African household, if you were parentified, if you were somebody who was a caretaker or somebody that was taught to put others first, you don't actually know what is yours and what is theirs. You don't know and it could be from your emotional state to your belongings physically to even your feelings. Sometimes we take on shame, we take on guilt, we take on responsibilities from other people, and we hold it on as if it's supposed to be ours, and then we forget that it doesn't even belong to you. And instead of actually putting it back to the person who gave it to you, you hold it up and you realize that you're walking around with lots of baggage. Just like my previous video where I talked about what to let go in 25, a lot of us are bag ladies. We're walking around with 20 bags, and our journey is so long and heavy because we're holding other people's goods when you really should be putting it down and picking up your own. And when you realize that when you put other people's stuff down, you realize that you didn't even have much to begin with. Why? Because you didn't have boundaries. You have to consider, what are your boundaries? What are the things you like? What are the things you don't like? How you want to be talked to? How do you want to be treated? And actually start to put parameters around that. And anybody that crosses those boundaries lines have to go. You have to learn to pick yourself. You have to learn to choose yourself. Was it last and not least, and that's number 5, is that you have to work on your weaknesses. There's a saying that goes around, and I've heard it for years, that don't work on your weaknesses, work on your strengths. Work on the things that you are good at, because you can always leverage and build on your weaknesses, because you can hire somebody else to do the things that you are not good at. But the truth of the matter is that you cannot outsource internal chaos. You cannot outsource internal chaos. You cannot outsource low self-esteem. You cannot outsource a lack of self-worth, low self-esteem, a lack of confidence. You cannot outsource the fact that you don't like yourself or that you don't feel worthy. You cannot outsource people pleasing. Those are things that you have to deal with it. These are things that you have to deal on your own. You have to deal with it. You can't outsource that. Nobody can make that better. You can't tell somebody that I have destructive thoughts and they can put, positive thoughts back into you. You can't tell somebody that, oh my gosh, I don't love myself. I lack a sense of identity. And for the people to give you an identity, you can't do that. You have to work on your weaknesses. You need to find out why you suffer from certain things, because if you're not careful, your internal struggles will become your external realities. That lack of self-worth will look like you've been in a bad relationship and putting yourself in difficult situations. That lack of confidence will look like that you will never aspire to reach things that are higher than where you're currently at. That lack of identity will have you attaching yourself to situations and people and places that are going to strip you of the little that you have already, the little that you actually currently possess. You need to actually work on your weaknesses. You need to actually work and ask yourself, why do I shy away from having difficult conversations? Why do I feel as if I need to people please? Why do I feel as if like I'm not allowed to consider myself and I put myself last and I put other people's ahead of me? You need to work on those internal weaknesses so then your external world can get better. Because when you start to work on what's inside, when that becomes stronger, everything that you want will suddenly come. It may not come in the way that you want to, it may not come in the time in which you want it to come, but it will come because you have worked on your weaknesses. So I really hope that just with these 5 points that will help you to finally put yourself first, because the world is asking for you to put yourself first. People that don't put themselves first fail. And they don't fail because they're failures. They fail because they put themselves last all the time. They're never going to try to reach their goal. They'll probably quit quicker than they've actually started. They're going to put people ahead of them. They're never going to fight and advocate for themselves. They're never going to ask for their needs to be met because they don't know how to pick themselves. They're never going to protect themselves from danger. They're never going to trust their inner self or their inner instinct because they haven't learned to actually listen to themselves. The world is calling for you to trust yourself. God is calling for you to trust yourself. God is calling for you to choose yourself. The time is now. So I really hope that with these points, it helps you to put into perspective what choosing yourself actually looks like. If you can put that in a comment, I'm choosing myself. Out of these 5 points, what will you be focusing on for the rest of the year? Until the next video. Bye everybody.